Over the past few months, a number of people have asked me to compile a list of viable alternatives for popular big tech products and services. I've written about this subject in the past, but it's high time I actually made a series of videos about it too. With that in mind, here is part 1 of Escaping the Clutches of Big Tech, showcasing some excellent viable options to mainstream products and services for those of you looking to begin your escape from the surveillance machine of the big tech behemoths. You'll find all the relevant links in the description to this video below. First up, Google Search. Though most people still don't realize this, Google has been fully woke and highly censored for at least the past decade. The search giant has also seen its share of publicity blunders in recent years, which illustrate how badly Google tampers with the actual truth. From the viral news that its AI assistant deliberately made America's founding fathers, and even Vikings, ethnically diverse, to blatantly favoring one political candidate over another, as proven by Professor Robert Epstein, and the outright censorship of factual information that's counter to or critical of official media narratives, Google has long since ceased to be seen as the world's big friendly librarian. But where can you go to search for information that big tech search engines like Google, Bing, or Yahoo have decided to hide from you? Well, on the open web, there's currently only one single search engine that's still relatively uncensored, and that's yandex.com. That's it. Contrary to everything you've ever been told about Russia, the country's own search engine is actually the least censored search provider of them all, and is proving to be a platform for free speech and unbiased research. Don't just take my word for it. Check it out for yourself by searching for a vaguely controversial subject like mRNA vaccines, the Holocaust, or the Palestinian genocide. Look at the differences in results and you'll instantly see what I'm talking about. Don't get me wrong, you'll find hundreds of search engines claiming to be uncensored, but literally all of them except Yandex share one fatal flaw. They all use big tech search platforms as their data sources. So while they themselves may not be censoring content, their data providers most certainly are. I've personally put this to the test with around 3 different international search providers, including Quant, Jibiru, Brave, Mojik, and Startpage, so you don't have to. And they all return the same curated results whenever I look for anything vaguely controversial. Next up, Google Docs and Microsoft Office. With a total of around 1.5 billion combined monthly users, Google Docs and Microsoft Office are the undisputed rulers of the productivity space. However, both companies have faced consistent criticism from tech watchdogs and magazines, as well as numerous privacy advocacy groups about user privacy and the potential intrusion and/or oversight into their users' private documents. So great has the level of criticism been that, believe it or not, there's even a credible Wikipedia page dedicated to privacy concerns with Google, which actually lays out the numerous incidents through the years fairly well. However, it being Wikipedia, the tone is still slanted in the direction of giving Google the benefit of the doubt. Let me say one thing quite categorically at this stage. If it's in the cloud, or anywhere on the internet for that matter, it's not private, no matter what anyone tells you. As a matter of fact, there is no such thing as the cloud. What has been so cleverly sold to internet users as a fluffy cloud, which securely stores your private files and information, is actually an endless set of big tech service centers providing questionable privacy at best. One prime example of privacy invasions by Google rests in the fact that Google Drive will arbitrarily delete pirated content from users' files and has done for several years now. This may not sound like a big deal on the face of it, but think about it. It proves beyond a doubt that Google has insight and access to your own private files. Be honest, how many of you have had pirated or controversial content deleted by Google Drive or Microsoft One? Drop a comment below. I could drone on for hours about how Microsoft reserves the right to detect and report illegal content and hate speech in its Windows Terms of Service, or how your Google Doc files are basically an open book when not in transit due to Google not using end-to-end encryption properly. But I don't want to bore anyone, so I'll just drop the relevant links in the video description in case you're interested. So if you're looking to get away from having your documents spied on, then check out LibreOffice. As far as working in relative privacy is concerned, I've personally settled on LibreOffice as my go-to alternative, since it's free and open source, and also supported by a large dedicated global development community, which makes sure there's no behind-the-scenes spying on its 200 million users around the globe. Let me clear up a common misconceptions about open source software at this stage. Many people think that open source means that an application is open to intrusion, to being contaminated with viruses, malware, or spyware. The opposite is actually true. Making a software's source code open to examination by its user community effectively turns that community into watchdogs who make sure that nobody is able to slip anything malicious into the application's code, as this would be instantly discovered by the many programmers and developers who monitor the open source. See how that works? And since LibreOffice automatically saves your files locally on your computer's hard disk drive, instead of sending them nebulously into the cloud and out of your own control, there's a far lower chance of your confidential data actually falling into the wrong hands or being covertly surveilled by big tech. Moving on, we stay with Google and its Gmail service. With a total of 1.8 billion active users, Gmail is the most popular online email service in the world. But for all its popularity, Gmail has been persistently criticized about user privacy and unsupervised third-party spying into private messages. Unknown to most people, Google doesn't use end-to-end encryption by default, which means your messages are wide open to be read by bad actors in a number of ways. So what do you use to protect your private messages against the prying eyes of big tech? Well, a number of alternatives exist, but before I get into details, it has to be said that no webmail service will ever be truly private, no matter what its claims to 100% user privacy may be. If you're using any of the following services, it's still safe to assume that intelligence agencies are able to spy on your communications at will. From my professional perspective, there are two acceptable free Gmail alternatives. First, ProtonMail. Potentially the most well-known of the encrypted email services, Proton was launched in 2014. During the intervening years, Proton has added calendar functionality and even a VPN to its free offering, a suite of services which has made it one of the most popular online email providers in the world. The service uses AES-256 asymmetric encryption to encrypt and decrypt messages you send and receive. This government-level encryption standard makes it about as secure as anything else you're using online, including your online banking. This brings us to the other encrypted mail service on the list, Zoho Mail. Part of the Zoho suite, Zoho Mail is owned by the Zoho Corporation, which operates out of Chennai in India. Boasting the same AES-256 email encryption as standard, along with a similar feature set to Proton, this service has attracted a lot of users since its launch in 2008. Zoho's pledge to protecting user privacy is strong and solid on the face of it, though some critics have questioned the company's approach since India does not have any specific privacy and data protection laws to guard users against intrusion and disclosure. That brings us to messaging apps like Google Meet, Facebook Messenger, and Zoom. Video messaging and conferencing apps have become part of our daily life for most of us. But while these services are great for convenience and communication, they are also one of the weakest elements in our day-to-day privacy and security. Zoom, for instance, reserves the right to use anything you use its own platform for to train its AI. Facebook Messenger lacks proper encryption, and Google Meet's excessive personalization connections into the Google surveillance systems are just some of the issues most frequently cited by watchdogs and privacy advocates. In short, no big tech video messaging app is even remotely private or secure. And since the head of Telegram, Pavel Durov, has caved to the intelligence community's demands that he hand over the backdoor keys to Telegram, even this, the supposedly most secure communications platform, has now been compromised. So what's the alternative? Signal. Touting itself as the only secure communications app, Signal certainly has impressive credentials. Using the open source Signal protocol, the app is supposedly crack and breach-proof. There's also been no talk at all of secret backdoor keys, and Signal itself maintains that no such keys exist or would ever be shared. This sounds good on paper until you realize that Google and Facebook messengers, as well as WhatsApp and Skype, also use the same Signal protocol as part of their own security setup, albeit in a closed source configuration without their code being subject to the public scrutiny of Signal's open source code. And lastly for this video, we have Google Maps. Trying to find a workable alternative to Google Maps is a tough gig, since Google Maps is basically the mother of all mapping apps, and there's absolutely no way for anyone to ever match its sheer depth of functionality and practicality without their mapping system being tied into a surveillance and personalization infrastructure equal to Google's. With that said, there is actually an open source community supported mapping solution that's gaining a lot of momentum, with users looking to detach themselves from the Google Maps stranglehold. OpenStreetMap. While its functionalities are basic at best compared to those of Google Maps, OpenStreetMap doesn't track you and tie your movements and behaviors into its surveillance system the way Google does with your user profile data. OSM will give you directions, show basic information, and allow you to navigate using your device's GPS, but that's about it. For example, OSM cannot give you live traffic data the way Google Maps does, because it doesn't spy on all its users in order to compile traffic conditions in real time. It also cannot pick out the perfect restaurant based on your own personal preferences, because it has no access to your user behavior to make any such choice in the first place. That's it for part 1 of the Back to Freedom guide to escaping the clutches of big tech. Look out for the remaining segments of this series on our BitChute and YouTube channels, which will cover secure web browsers, alternative computer and phone operating systems, as well as VPNs and other privacy and security tools.